We are back.
we really
are back here on D15 today. So welcome back to all our listeners. And our next guest now is George Fitzgerald. And George is no stranger to the Phoenix FM. He has been on doing a programme called Motivational Journeys. And we used to listen in fairness.
Yeah.
So we're delighted to have you on D15 today, George. And good morning.
No problem at all.
Brilliant. Listen, tell us just a little bit, because I listening to your show, right? And I used to be wondering a little bit about you. So how did you get to want to produce and be presenter on that particular programme before we even talk about your book?
Well, see, what happened there was we did an interview there a couple of years ago, going back about 6 years ago, 2017 I think it was. And after the interview we had a discussion led to this, and then it took a couple of months, and then I was presented with the idea of producing and being the broadcaster on the own show Motivational Journeys that went out at 6 o'clock, I think it was, and at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, and went from there. That's basically the edited version, really, what took place there.
Yeah, because I did listen in, and I used to always find it so inspiring, so I was just wondering how it actually did come about.
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. Going back, as I said, 2016, around that particular time, you know. And it was an interesting time as well. Like, you know, I did it for 5-6 years.
Yeah, and that was enough for you, was it? That was enough. You were running out of stories then.
Oh, I doubt it very much that this man would run out of stories. Hi, George. Good morning. It's Grania here as well. Grania is with Carmel. I'm not at all surprised now for a man that'll talk 90 to the dozen. And actually, our line isn't great. So if you wouldn't mind slowing it down just a little bit, it'll help, because the line isn't the clearest. So for a man with as much talk as you, I'm not surprised that there's a book in you. What I am surprised is that you had the time and paid that you'd sit down long enough to put one together. But this, this isn't your first book now. I have to admit, I haven't read any of them. So, but you're like the 39 bus, none for ages, and then two come along together. 2 books out at the moment.
Yeah, I put out 2 books. One is called, the first book was called Molly J. Gumball. Molly J. Gumball is basically a short story about a young Dublin girl who finds herself at a disadvantage, in the sense her mother had passed away. She was estranged from her father, and she basically gets taken into a house by a woman called Pippi, and they live in around not too far from the Phoenix Park.
The North Circular, yeah. I heard a chapter of it on YouTube.
Yeah, you can hear. Yeah, sure. The whole book is on audio. Is on YouTube, and so basically that's her tale, and her tale coming to terms with where she is, and basically it's a nice little short story, and the relationship between Molly J. Gumball and her sister Rachel is very endearing, and that's really what it's about, you know, finding their feet where they are. The next book is called Frankie's Little Miss Madser. Now that is a follow-up, that's a bigger book, and that's the follow-up to a book called The Promise Maker. And basically The Promise Maker is a book that is a follow-up to The Secret Life of Ashley Brown. So it all starts off with The Secret Life of Ashley Brown, the beautiful Dublin blonde girl, and her romantic notions of meeting Mr. Right, and how she bumps into this guy called Frankie. He's an older man, and then Frankie tells his tale, and his tale goes into The Promise Maker. And it continues on in Frankie's Little Miss Madser. There's an interesting point I'd like to make, is that the rabbi you had on earlier, in part of the story with Frankie, he does go up to a place which was known as Little Jerusalem.
Uh-huh.
And in those days you had Little Jerusalem, and then you also had Little Italy. So you had a lot of Jewish men in those particular years. Frankie's a tenement kid coming from the tenement world, and he lives in the tenement world. And it's a complete different city, really, when we look at it from the perspective of where they were and how they were living. So that's Frankie's Little Miss Madser.
Now, can I ask you a question? Because the little bit I found on that one, would I need to have read the 2 previous books to enjoy this one? Or should I do myself a favour and start where it started at the beginning? Or are they standalone books?
No, they're all standalone books. Yeah, they are connected, but they are standalone books. You know, I was careful in doing that. So you don't have to go back to a lot of questions that are asked in the first book can be addressed in the second one.
Yeah. Sorry, George. The line isn't great. I wonder, are you on speakerphone by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Would you knock that off? Maybe we'll try that. That might improve things. Yeah? If you don't mind.
Now, how's that?
Oh, much, much clearer. Thank you so much. I know you're probably trying to overcome some noisy places you are, but it's coming through much clearer on the speakers. Thank you so much. So yes, back to your trilogy there. Yeah, Frankie. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Frankie, he's a tenement kid, grows up in the tenement world, and the last book, The Promise Maker, which is reviewed by a few number of papers and that, said that the characters were all Dickensian. There's very Dickensian characters in it. And you have the likes of, he's surrounded by people like Coswallop, Mary Applejaws, Whacker, Daisy May. Daisy May is a mad.
they're brilliant names.
Lovely names.
Yeah, well, you have Daisy May, you have Whacker, you have Coswallop, and later on you have a guy called Hopper, and you have Gickna, and you have basically Snoozy, and you have Short Pots, and you have Bungalow. So
you must know some really interesting people to come up with names like that.
Yeah, well, it's just basically the imagination and coming up with the imagination. Yeah. I'll do a little bit of reading if you don't mind.
Yeah, please do. That'd be lovely.
Right, and the reading I'm going to do is, and the reason why I'm going to do the reading is to keep in line with the rabbi that was on earlier, because this is where Rosie comes into the story. Frankie is thinking back. See, little Miss Madser is actually Rosie. Rosie is the daughter of Coswallop and Mary Applejaws. And basically she becomes, even though Frankie is the central protagonist in the story, she becomes the central character outside of Frankie. Frankie falls in love with her in a sense. You know, he knows her from a child. But let me just break in here in chapter 6 where Frankie's starting to think back to when they were young. Rosie was one of Coswallop's daughters. She was the sweetheart with the big nose, the kid who said the first thing to come into her head, the girl with the large eyes and pleasant face. Pudgy, big nose, that's what the children call her. Rosie, Pudgy, big nose. Rosie was no longer the same little girl. Slasher had seen to that. It took time, but she changed. She'd grown into herself. Yes, that's what the people would say. Rosie, you've grown into yourself. Well, that's not exactly what they'd say. They said, Pudgy Big Nose has grown into her nose. Rosie was 2 years younger than me. On a hot, blistering day when I was 10, I rambled around the fruit markets near the courts. Tiny fingers gripped mine. I looked and beheld Rosie. Hello, Frankie. Can you take me home? I want to go home. Rosie, what are you doing over here? I followed you. Rosie. Hold on, Frankie. Me ma smells like fish, Frankie. Me dad smells like beer. Me ma's hair's in nuts, and me dad's hair's in bits. That's 'cause me sister Esther cut it when he was asleep. Me ma said, Esther, quick, cut your dad's hair while he's conked out, but don't leave it in bits. She left it in bits, Frankie. She came running in shouting, Ma, I did dad's hair, it's in bits. He won't stop moving. Me ma said, it's far up me arse, he won't be sitting on it. It might even keep me out of boozer for a while. You did your best. Don't be worrying about it. You're gas, Rosie. I blushed in a fit of laughter. The man said she doesn't know where she got me from, Frankie. Neither do I said, rubbing the top of her head. I saw your dad this morning. That's a right hairball or cut he has there. We laughed. Me dad says I come from the moon. Pudgy Big Nose comes from the moon. Do you like the moon, Frankie? Yeah, I do, Rosie. Me too. I love the moon. That day, Rosie and I wandered from Smithfields to Christchurch and over to Little Jerusalem. The pace in which we travelled was a sleepy saunter. Some houses around South Circular Road had red brick facades, wrought iron railings and fire escapes. We wandered around Camden Street and saw guys using push carts and small shops advertising big bargains and a great many Jewish men with big hats and long beards. The place smelled of baked bread and cooked fish. We took turns and peeked through a letterbox and watched the dressmaker working with the fabrics in a hall. It fascinated Rosie. She spotted beds against the window on the inside and bright colours, dresses lying in the sun. Wow, Frankie, look at the colours. I love them with you, Frankie. She clapped her hands and jumped up and down. Joy, excitement and hope exploded from her childish face. There was something in her. It was an artistic gift. I glanced over my shoulder at the bakery. I watched the man lift cakes from a window. Taking a hand, we ran across the street and stared at the cakes. The man saw us. He was Jewish. He came to the door. Have you ever eaten rye bread? It is wonderful. He put his fingers to his lips and blew them out. Wonderful. Wonderful, he repeated. Now, if you want to taste, you have to have the penny, the nickel on the dime, or the penny on the dollar. We don't have a penny or a dollar, I said. This is an expression meaning pay less than full value. So let me show you kindness. Have you seen kindness? We both nodded. He went inside and then came back and handed us bread he called rye bread. We said thanks and ate in front of him. It was crispy and tender with a floury bottom. And for us starving kids, the most enjoyable bread ever. The old man smiled and winked and handed me a shilling. He gave one to Rosie. We were amazed and overjoyed. So I took her hand and ran in case he changed his mind.
That's mighty. That's what a taster there. Don't be giving too much away now, George, or people won't have to go out and write. We are in stitches laughing at some of that. Just some of it is so descriptive, and when you're in the dialogue scenes, it's straight out of people's mouths. It's mighty stuff. You've got a great audience here. There's 4 of us keeled over here with this. So where can we get your books?
Well, see, at the moment, I'm only out getting out the phone this morning. I'm actually down dealing with the printers. We're only going through the proof. We have the proof book now.
Are you self-publishing, George, yeah?
Yes, self-publishing. So next week what it will be probably, I'm going to upload it and it'll go live. So it'll be a download free. So you can download it free. You can download it.
You'll never get rich like that now.
Well, you never get rich, but the reality is, see, it's not about rich. It's about actually getting the work out there.
Yeah.
And getting some exposure and getting somebody to read it and having them read it. And really what it's about is just, as a writer, getting your work read, and that's really what the reward is. Yeah. Anything out after that is a bonus. It's basically.
And, come here now, but you the Frankie's Little Miss Madser. That's part 3 of the Ashley Brown series, let's say. So where would people get number 1 and number 2?
Well, again, what you can do is you can actually go down into Amazon and download it. You can download The Secret Life of Ashley Brown, and you can download The Promise Maker. And then that's what I'm saying. Next week, you can download, probably next week, you can download Frankie's Little Miss Madser. In these
times where things are costing through the roof, it's great to get something for free. That's absolutely wonderful. The best of luck to you with the books. They sound like a treat, and I'm really looking forward to actually the lovely story, the Molly J. Gumball, the short story based on North Circular. I listened to a little bit of that before we came on this morning, and that sounds really, really lovely. That's endearing. So I'll be starting with that one, and then we'll give the trilogy a try.
No problem at all.
Best of luck to you, George. God bless, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. God bless.
A treat as always.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, George.
Bye.
Bye.